Muted. All right, now the mic is unmuted. Welcome back to Pleb Underground, where my mic is unmuted and we are enjoying paper Bitcoin summer. That's right. Like every other channel that is shilling shares, hey, we love Bitcoin. It's time to buy shares. I'm kidding. I obviously complete opposite to my messaging, but I just couldn't help it, right? It's paper Bitcoin summer and I'm super excited. I've ordered a suit. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to start wearing it, taking ourselves really seriously and shilling you guys shares because I love Bitcoin. Anyways, we've got an awesome show today. The stories I'm going to be covering. Number one, it might be over. We've got a Cramer endorsement. We're going to take a look at that. Next, we've got a couple of diagrams coming out of MicroStrategy that, I don't know, a little weird. We're going to take a look at those. Also, Square surprising plebs like me and moving really quickly on accepting Bitcoin payments. But of course, right, Pleb Underground, we actually tell you the truth. So we're going to dive into the details of what does that really mean and which customers are actually, which customers of Square are actually going to be able to accept these Bitcoin payments for the time being. As well, we're going to take a look. So this was actually pretty interesting. The CEO, I believe, of Key Corp, ticker symbol Key, Key Bank as well. Anyways, they were talking about custodying crypto assets, right? And obviously, custodying Bitcoin and doing this for their customers. It's a really interesting part, though, in the interview where I believe he said the quiet part out loud. So we're going to go through that. And finally, what else do we got? Yes, of course. So, had a little video of I believe it's going to be the future CEO of BSTR, which is essentially this Atom-backed SPAC that is going to be merging with ticker symbol SEPO or something like that. Anyways, I thought he had a very interesting take. We are going to dive into it. And to answer Roman's question, when Pleb Underground shares for SBR, it's coming, man. It is totally coming because, at Pleb Underground, we love Bitcoin. And the best way to show that you love Bitcoin is to give your shares to a company that's dying. Okay. Give your Bitcoin to a company that's dying. They pay you for that. And on top of that, they give you shares and then you shill that stuff and then you dump your shares. It's fantastic. I loving Bitcoin. Anyways, guys, the deal. Before we dive into it, we're gonna give some love to the Pleb Underground sponsor, and we will be right back. Should be a fun episode. Lots of stuff to cringe at. Here we go.
Pleb Underground is sponsored by Archimedes Emporium. Discover the pinnacle of precision engineering, starting with their Bitcoin logo wall clock, meticulously machined in Maine from a solid block of aerospace-grade aluminum, ensuring unparalleled durability and performance. Experience the difference of a product made without compromise. Head on over to Archimedes Emporium.
Been weighing lending against crypto assets. Now we got
Here we go.
Very fast, and I think that one of the things that I think any of these guys would say is, look, the customers want it. Now, when I had, it's very funny, because everyone says the customers want it, but when I had Michael Meback on, who's the CEO of MasterCard, he didn't think there was any real demand for it. I mean, people want to trade. I think people want to own some as a hedge against the $8 trillion. They want to own a debt. They want to own it for their kids. And you know who else feels that way? Me. I don't want that debt. My kids, I'm worried about my kids.
All right, guys, that pretty much says it all. Pretty much says it all. We're gonna pack it in, right? Cramer just said he wants to buy Bitcoin, so we all know the bull run's over. Guys, it has been super fun this last year. We had a fantastic time. I will see you all again in 2028. Obviously, I am not being serious. Look, take that any way you want when it comes to Cramer's endorsements. I am I'm a pretty critical person of Jim Cramer just because he's one of the people that I followed way back in the beginning of my investment journey. And of course, right, you're learning, you don't know what you're doing. And yeah, I ended up learning that we're all broken clocks, right? And he was kind of one of the first people to teach me that we are all broken clocks. Anyways, moving on to I don't know, maybe you guys can make something of this. I was talking about this with Ulrich last night, right? So here's a post from Michael Saylor. I'm just gonna not say anything, and you're just gonna look at that. It's the Bitcoin Defense Department. Now, I'm not saying that using, pentagrams and sacred geometry and whatever is, necessarily terrible, right? Because symbolism is symbolism. It's really what makes symbolism evil or bad is what people do using those symbols. But I do find it kind of strange. I don't know. I was talking about this with Ulrich last night. I find this weird. Could have used a different diagram to point this all out and not make it looking satanic. Anyways, and I understand the actual satanic symbol is with it upside down, right? But it's still curious that he's using this pagan symbology. Nevertheless, to each their own, right? To each their own. Just pointing this out. And the pyramid. We've got the pentagram. Actually, let's go back to the previous one, right? It's not just the pentagram; it's the pentagram within the pentagon. Just pointing that out, pentagram within the pentagon, and then the triangle. Anyways, I know it doesn't mean anything. It's just tinfoil hat takes. Just saying it's weird, and I'm calling it weird. Anyways, all right. Moving on from the Saylor weirdness and the diagrams. I mean, of course, you could always give the argument, well, what other shapes is he supposed to use? Granted, many things are in the shape of a pyramid. And for the people who actually pay attention to the weird hypocrisy of humanity, right? We call certain types of businesses pyramid schemes, but yet when you go work for a corporation, how many times have you worked for two CEOs? Right? It's always one CEO at the top, and then there's the board of directors, which may symbolize the invisible chiefs, right, so to speak. But my point is that it's a pyramid. So, anyways, all right, we're not even going to get into that. It's okay. Our infinite human stupidity allows us to move forward. Okay, so the next story that we're going to take a look at is this whole Fidelity story. So, of course, if you're paying attention to the Bitcoin historian here, the Pete Rizzo account, right, makes it sound like that's it, boom, rocket ship coming, $10 trillion Fidelity amends Bitcoin ETF agreement to allow in-kind redemptions, right? Wall Street settling in real BTC, it's coming. Not so fast. Not so fast. It's not really coming that fast. All right, so actually here, maybe we'll see if I could zoom in on this thing, make it a little, yeah, okay. So this is actually from Tales from the Crypt, from their account. They highlighted this, right? The amendment was adopted to permit the trust to facilitate creation and redemption of shares in kind. The trust will not commence accepting orders for the creation or redemption, okay, before the necessary regulatory approvals have been granted. Okay, what does that actually mean? Well, there's a bunch of different steps to this. So, SEC approvals for the proposed rule change. The amendments required the SEC approval to move away from the cash-only redemption model initially mandated for spot Bitcoin ETFs in 2024. So first, they've got to change that, and it has to be accepted and approved. Okay. So then there's addressing the SEC's concerns, right? The SEC has delayed the rulings of the in-kind redemption proposals for Fidelity and other issuers due to concerns about the complexity and security of crypto-based funds. The amendments must address these issues, which means they have to draw this up. They have to submit it. They have to discuss it. There needs to be agreement. This is not like these fucking shill accounts. Sorry. Trying to be more optimistic. Paper Bitcoin Summer. I love this. It's fantastic. It's great. Okay. Yeah. So the other piece, right, where we all sit there thinking that, like, for whatever reason, there's this this kind of utopian vision in people's minds that, like, they're going to be selling their ETF shares and somehow the ETF's just going to be sending them Bitcoin to their cold storage. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Okay. Retail investor exclusion In-kind redemptions will apply only to APs. The amendments focus on institution efficiency rather than broad investor access. Now, even though they make that sound like they're not calling us peons, they are calling us peons, okay? The amendments have to do with the banks and the institutions being able to settle the real assets. I don't give a shit about you and me. Screw us. Anyways, okay, I know. It's terrible. The truth is never fun, right? You want to just imagine that everything is wonderful. But yeah, that's just not the reality of things. Businesses are going to do what's right for them. Okay, so now these APs, right? Let's go take a look. So the amendments modify the trust agreement to allow authorized participants, the APs, such as large Wall Street firms and market makers, to exchange ETF shares. You notice it didn't say peon or pleb or retail investor there, right? It's not for us. Okay? It's not for us. Nobody cares about you being able to hold your own asset. You need to care about you holding your own asset. I need to care about me holding my own asset, not the other way around. Yeah, it's not fun. Okay, so when is this all going to happen, right? When are we getting all these wonderful things? No specific approval timeline has been provided. Okay. And essentially, I think the first piece that we're actually going to get to see is exactly what they've documented here around August 26th, 2025, because there's going to be decisions made on the proposals for BlackRock's Ethereum ETF. So, in-kind redemptions, not as close as you think they are. Okay, not as close as we think they are. And again, I am not one of these people who is against in-kind redemptions. Of course, this makes the most sense. I want the most people possible having self-custody of their Bitcoin. To me, this is how we win. So of course, I'm all about that. But the reality is that I'm not just gonna lie to myself, right? And lie to you guys because it's just such better news. It's not. Okay. This is going to be a process. It's going to take time, and we're not even 100% sure if it's ever actually going to, happen. Anyways, all right. So another debunk, huh? It's pretty fun. Maybe I'm not just the shitcoin slayer. Maybe I also slay Bitcoin crappy narratives. I don't know. Who knows? All right. So moving on, the next piece, the next story that we're going to take a look at actually is Square. Right? Square accepting Bitcoin payments. You know what? BTC Pins put out a post yesterday, and I mean, in all fairness, right? I'm like the first person to go and criticize this kind of stuff. Maybe besides Predator, but I was pleasantly surprised because I criticized Jack Dorsey a few months ago, or like 2 months ago, pretty much, and I said, that it's kind of embarrassing that Steak and Shake managed to pull out Bitcoin payments before a company like Square that facilitates payments in general and offers payment terminals. Like you literally had all the pieces of the puzzle. All you had to do was add Bitcoin and Lightning to the terminals. And then, of course, right, came up with some long drawn out excuse as to why that takes so much longer. But yet we got Steak and Shake that doesn't care about Bitcoin, that boom, we're taking Bitcoin payments. So who knows what they did differently. But anyways, let's dive into this, right? So yeah, we know the deal. Right, Jack Dorsey Square to allow merchants to accept Bitcoin. But of course, what is the actual truth of this? What is the actual truth? So, it's not everybody, right? If you're a business, doesn't just necessarily mean you're going to be able to accept Bitcoin. It is select merchants, okay? And it's not available to all Square users. So it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? They're just testing. But again, right? It's not everybody can accept everybody can accept Bitcoin payments. That's not what's actually happening. They're rolling this out slowly. Big disparity between what the shillers are showing you and what the actual accurate information is, right? It's a big difference. And of course, differences like that influence our emotions. Quite often, the difference between reality and what we expect is going to determine the degree of emotion that we have. So, something to keep in mind. So that's why I like to temper my expectations, right? So I don't want to get too excited, right? Because then I don't want to get extremely let down. So it's good to be accurate and be realistic. Anyways, okay, we're going to take a look at KeyCorp, right? This KeyBank announcement. Let's hear what this guy had to say, right? They're all excited. They're gonna custody crypto and Bitcoin, right, for their customers. And of course, they were prepared for this, seemingly, after the discussion of the Genius Act last week and all of that news coming through and that actually being approved and passed and signed by Donald Trump, right? These guys, they were ready to go. They're totally ready to go.
Feeling about getting in and using it as potentially a platform and option for your clients?
I mean, it's early, but I think it has a lot of promise, and particularly around stablecoin. And obviously, the Genius Act was just last week. But when you think about stablecoin, there's really a few things. There's the institutional piece, which will be the equivalent like prime brokerage. That will be dominated by a single handful of international banks. The huge volume, relatively narrow margins. That's not really an opportunity or a challenge for us. The next is as a storer of value. And clearly, to the extent, Sarah, that our clients want it and they want to hold it in their wallets, we will accommodate that. And so we'll be sure to do that. Then there's the sort of discussion around, is it going to cannibalize deposits at banks?
Okay, this is where it gets interesting.
I actually think that's a fair, I think it's a threat, but I don't think it's an immediate threat. And I think the industry will respond. I mean, you know, whether it's with tokenized deposits, which I think you'll see banks like Key do, and you may well see, I don't envision Key issuing a coin per se, but
he doesn't envision Key issuing a coin per se. However,
I could see us as part of a consortium of banks that issues a coin.
Of course you do.
I think the two best applications are really international payments. Right now, international payments are sort of this Byzantine approach of, you know, all these correspondent banks. It takes a long time. There's a lot of friction. I think stable coins could be a really good solution for our clients. It could be faster, cheaper, better. And then last is just programmable payments, which every bank needs to do, whether it's escrows or other programmable payments. So I'm actually...
Yeah. They avoid talking about freezing your account or making your money disappear or anything like that. They just talk about the programmable payments. But guys, what we are actually witnessing is the story of the bed of Procrustes playing out in real time, where the financial system is actively trying to shoehorn all, because look, the reality is that Bitcoin doesn't help them, right? Like what he was just talking about, remittances, cross-border payments, all of this is facilitated by Bitcoin. So the reality is that these guys are just simply reinventing the wheel. And he kind of hinted to the fact that he can see the end of the road, right? And like, or I should say the end of the tunnel, that light at the end of the tunnel, like that's not escape for them. That light at the end of the tunnel is a train. Okay. So, and that train is Bitcoin. So all they have is, hey, we're going to make a stable coin. We're going to get a whole bunch of banks together and we're going to make this token. That to me was the real signal, is the fact that like these guys, they are worried. They are concerned. They need to maintain their moat. Bankers need to maintain control, right? The banking institutions. And the only thing they know how to do is what's in their bag of tricks, which is create money out of thin air. And in this case now, they've been able to add stable coins to their arsenal. So I think we are in for some very interesting times. But what I'm especially enjoying is watching these financial institutions figure out how they're going to essentially fit Bitcoin into their existing system, and they're quickly figuring out that they can't. They can't really. So, and we're getting to watch the games. Anyways, okay, moving on here. Let's check out the next story is, okay, so this is the that's right. So SEPO, or BSTR, is positioning itself. essentially to be the next Berkshire Hathaway. Let's hear what I guess this guy's going to be the future CEO of this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that there are going to be just a couple winners here. I think that BSTR will be one of the winners.
Yeah.
We're showing up with a bulldozer and a permit to clear cut Bitcoin. We're going to, open up in the 4th spot, and we think that we'll very quickly slingshot into number 2.
I got to tell you, even though I make fun of all this stuff, they have 30,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That's crazy. That is just absolutely wild. Anyways.
That's our mission. We're really trying to create a fortress-like environment for our Bitcoin and really trying to position ourselves as the Berkshire Hathaway of the Bitcoin ecosystem.
What do you mean by that? Like do you mean by going and then buying other companies that are in the space and running them yourself the way that Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway has done?
Yeah, I think there's a great arbitrage here. We can issue debt at 1%. We can buy Bitcoin, and then as Bitcoin appreciates, we naturally de-lever our balance sheet. So I think that's a really unique capability that Bitcoin treasuries have access to that other companies don't. I think that you'll see over time that you can build a treasury that will become the preferred counterparty to a lot of the financial companies out there. So if you think about who do you want to face as a finance company or as a bank, if you need a Bitcoin revolver, we want to make sure that BSTR is the counterparty of choice.
You have
Okay. So becoming the Berkshire Hathaway, right? So for the people who have actually read about Warren Buffett, for the people who actually understand what Warren Buffett does, right? So essentially just the TLDR, Warren Buffett finds businesses that generate, first of all, they have healthy balance sheets, number one. Number two, they generate not just good cash flows for their business, but they're generating usually increasing cash flows for their business. And also he likes strong operating cash flows, which just means regular daily operations. They're not even getting new customers. How much cash is the business bringing in? So, and he likes to buy those businesses when they are severely discounted, right? According to his metrics, or the market is really dumping on these businesses, right? They're not valuing the business properly. This is what he does. That's what him and Charlie Munger did, and this is how he built Berkshire Hathaway that way. Now, Berkshire Hathaway is a boring company, okay? It's boring. And we know that because they don't do very much, but what they do with extreme intention, they persist, and they do it over a long enough period of time to capture the most gains possible, okay? So I got to tell you, that is a hefty bill for a company to come in, which is essentially just being created out of thin air. It's just debt, and being seeded with Adam's Bitcoin, of course. I appreciate their lofty aspirations. I'm obviously very reserved as to whether or not they'll actually be able to execute on that plan. I am optimistic, though, that these companies are figuring out that they need cash flow. They need proper revenue. That it cannot constantly come from diluting your shares, issuing bonds, and all of these debt instruments. Yes, debt instruments are useful and they have their place. However, there's only so long that you're going to be allowed to have that money printer and employ those debt instruments at reasonable, we'll say at reasonable levels to you as a business before it all blows up. Okay? So you just gotta be careful. Anyways, obviously, guys, it's not investment advice. I'm not telling you to go and buy these shares. I'm not telling you not to buy these shares. I am just simply commenting on what this future CEO of this company is explaining and what his aspirations are, and really what the depth of those aspirations really means. Because believe me, being Berkshire Hathaway, that's not fun. Okay, though that business is not fun. It's not cool. Everybody or not everybody, but a lot of people on Wall Street, they may secretly loathe it, right? But a lot of times they'll talk smack about Berkshire Hathaway and essentially the fact that they're not making enough money and that they missed all kinds of opportunities and stuff like that. He totally missed the tech boom. And yeah, totally got it. Totally missed the tech boom. But guess what? When there were massive market downturns, he was a buyer. He was a buyer of distressed assets, right? And he was able to make purchases in companies that in turn ended up coming back and increasing shareholder value for Berkshire Hathaway for years into the future. I mean, in all fairness, the first people who invested in Berkshire Hathaway were just Omaha, Nebraska locals. And these people, right, their kids are never going to have to work again because of those shares. So, hey, all the, you know what I mean? I wish BSTR all the luck in the world. I hope you guys can pull it off. I hope you can be the Berkshire Hathaway. Just keep in mind, there have been many players throughout history that have come through and said, we are going to be the Berkshire Hathaway of so-and-so industry. And you never heard from these people ever again. Anyways. All right, guys, that does it for me. That's the show. Tomorrow, we've got Jesse from Amboss on the show. We're going to be talking about lightning liquidity. It's going to be a little bit more of a technical interview, but it should be fun for the people who are possibly looking to maybe make their Bitcoin work for them. Well, this is supposedly a way of doing it. And we're going to sit down with Jesse and figure out how that gets done and what he has to say about it. All right, guys, that does it for me. I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.